Today, I decided to rank the Helluva boss characters based on their traumas, particularly their childhood traumas, some of which we will be getting into theory territory for. My name is Deepcut, hit the subscribe button, and real quick, before I reveal my choices, put down the characters you think have the most trauma in the comments down below. Alright, ready? Alright, at the very top of my chart we have Moxie, whose trauma is so powerful that it basically turned him into the only good person in the show on some level. Moxie's father was a mob boss in the Greed Ring who had high standards for Moxie that he never seemed to meet. Moxie was a softer kid all in all, and not always a coordinated adult either. His mother would help Moxie where he fell short, such as cutting his meat, knowing that in time he'd be able to handle it himself. One thing Moxie did to win his father's approval, however, was develop a knack for guns and long-range weaponry. This gave Moxie just enough value to his father that Moxie could potentially rise through the ranks of his mob. However, Moxie's mother tried to put a stop to that early on. In addition to this, Moxie's parents would have other strains in their relationship that would lead to Moxie's mother walking out on Moxie's father, Crimson. Following this, Moxie would be at the mercy of his father, learning all of their dirty dealings right up to how they dispose of dead bodies, where Moxie sees his mother's shoe float to the top of the water. Moxie, up to this point, probably thought that his mother abandoned him, which is one major layer of trauma, but after that, he would realize his own father murdered her, an even greater layer of trauma that he would have to deal with as long as he lived with his father. This is hell, so most characters are pretty evil regardless of their trauma, but Moxie is an example of how his trauma shaped him into wanting to be a moral person. He doesn't take issue with killing, particularly humans, as he knows they have an eternal soul, but he worries about killing a human child, as they don't have a chance to decide for themselves to be good or bad, but he recognizes adults as having made their choices and getting an afterlife they deserve. Instead, he tries to hold himself up to a general standard of morality that he feels his mother would have wanted, a woman who specifically tried to pull him away from the work his father did, which seemed to mostly exploit his own imp community so that he could live with great riches among the loan sharks. One step below so bad he's good, where I had placed Moxie, we have a category I call Just Broken, where I placed Visarelli and Luna. Now, we don't know exactly what happened to Visarelli, but from his robotic enhancements we see now and the foreshadowing we got of him as a child, it seems Blitz was responsible for some tragic accident that destroyed the family circus they worked at and ended up injuring Visarelli, perhaps damaging his arms and legs so that he needed the robotic enhancements. This physical trauma, as well as losing everything he had in his lifestyle up to that moment, is terrifying, though of course he would shortly after fall into a relationship and new lifestyle with Osmodius, and rise even higher in fame with his robotic love bots. None of this can ever really repair Visarelli through and through, however, as so much of what the audience loves about him comes down to him having been horribly mutilated in an accident as a child. Because of his good fortune with Osmodius, he has no reason to become some sort of evil villain, but no matter how good life gets, it's easy to see why he would still just feel broken, both physically and in his heart. Luna, on the other hand, hasn't had nearly the same physical trauma, but is a devastating example of what her entire species goes through. Hellhounds seem to breed at a faster rate than the other demons. While imps and succubus families seem to more closely resemble those of humans, hellhounds seem to breed at a rate closer to dogs, with multiple litters in a lifetime, each with several pups. These hellhounds get dumped into Beelzebub's pounds, masquerading as an adoption foundation, but from here, most hellhounds appear to be groomed to be lifelong servants to the family who adopts them. Even if they escape this, they are treated less like employees by other people and more like pets, such as how Veroska treats Vortex, her bodyguard. Luna is so broken not because of physical damage, though it looks like she may have had a lot of fights in the Hellhound Pound too, but rather because until Blitz, her life was entirely just one thing, being in a prison-like cell with other unwanted hellhounds, with the only step up being the possibility of someone coming in to make you a servant. While she got a much better life than most hellhounds because of Blitz, who even gives her a private bedroom while he just sleeps on the couch, her life so far has been so rough that it's easy to see why Blitz just gives her a pass on certain behaviors. One step below those two, I have the ranking Tragic but Rising above it, where I placed both Blitz and Striker. Blitz had a really tragic beginning with his family, especially his father, who seemed to not care about Blitz and would use the people who did seem to care about him, such as his mother and sister, against Blitz to get him to do things he was afraid to do. This is a tragic way to grow up, as a performer who isn't very talented in a family circus, who otherwise has to steal for the family's benefit, risking who knows what punishment in the process. In addition to this, it's strongly hinted at that Blitz caused a major disaster that burned down his circus, damaged Visarelli's limbs, and gave him his scar. This seems most foreshadowed in episode 2 of the series, where Blitz accidentally burns down Lululand in a fight with RoboFizz, with RoboFizz even burning in a way that matches the scar Blitz has on his own face. In addition to all this, some fans have theorized that Blitz's own mother died in this accident, which is why he cries when he sees the photo of his mother and sister in his phone, something especially plausible when you consider his sister is still alive and doing missions on Earth as seen in the recent previews. Regardless of if he has that much trauma, or just the trauma of ruining the family business that was also his own personal hell, it's a lot to deal with, but something Blitz tries to rise above. He isn't like Moxie in that he cares about morality because of his trauma, but rather Blitz doesn't let that stop him from rising up and trying again and again until he finds something he's good at and a family he feels he can love. Striker is mysterious, so his ranking on this chart may change, but the popular theory right now is that he is the son of Moxie's father, Crimson, as well as a snake-like demon or a loan shark. However he was born, this would make Striker the abandoned son of a powerful figure, not quite an overlord, but someone who Striker would see as being on the same level as the overlords, as Crimson is consistently exploiting his own people for profit. In this theory, Striker is believed to have been abandoned by Crim because he is a half-breed, but it is because of his combined skills of his two species that he seems to be one step above the other imps, as he likes to claim, and would undoubtedly have been a son who fit more in with Crimson's gang and likely would have made Crimson proud. Despite all this, Striker has still risen up, so much so that he's not just awarded a prize for his prowess in the Imp games, but has started to construct a plan to get angelic weapons to assassinate Stolas, and later to go against all the overlords that oppress the very species of hell. Another step below those two, we have the category, it gives them character, where I've placed Blitz's sister Barbie Wire, as well as Octavia. Barbie Wire we don't know to be particularly evil compared to the other demons in hell, and in fact seems to be pretty forgiving of Blitz overall. She complains that he's ruined her life, but she's just trying to live hers now, not trying to get revenge on Blitz for destroying the family circus, which I imagine led to her losing most of her fame. Losing her mother in an accident is a lot as well, but ultimately, at least so far, it just seems to give her character. They are sad events, but sad events out of her control and that are just part of the flow of history. She doesn't want to be near Blitz because he caused the trauma, but she doesn't seem to blame him to the degree of wanting revenge on him, at least not yet. And unlike Blitz, she doesn't have to deal with the idea that it was all her fault. She is able to just move on, at least if Blitz will let her. Like Barbie Wire, Octavia's childhood is kind of sad, but one that just gives her character. It's tragic for Barbie Wire to lose her mother in the circus accident, if that theory is true, but Octavia has to deal with her mother literally trying to assassinate her father, someone she cares about deeply and of course has feared since she was a child would one day just not be there for her. This is her greatest fear, and one of the greatest losses anyone can have, and yet it's her own mother behind it. Assuming Stolas doesn't end up getting murdered by Stella, I do believe Octavia will bounce back from this, and of course she will just be someone who looks back at this and realizes that it gives her character. Below this, I have tragic, but should have risen above it, the way Blitz and Striker did in their ways. Here I place Stella and Stolas. Both come from similar backgrounds with parents who seem to have no real love for them and expected them to just fulfill certain roles, including marrying the exact right people. While Stolas isn't the kind of evil that Stella is, neither seems to have really risen above their trauma, instead staying in the hierarchy that they were forced into and just being the worst versions of themselves within it. Finally, the lowest on the list I'm putting Millie under is she's a murderer, folks. Millie has had the least trauma of any character really, having only minor issues with her family, and yet she's easily the most enthusiastic and talented murderer among them, with this perhaps being how she avoided any trauma as a kid, easily killing anyone who would give her any trouble, such as she does with her opponents in the Pain Olympics. This is just my ranking so far on who has the most trauma in Helluva Boss, but as the series progresses, maybe we'll do another video like this and rearrange them with the information we get later and other theories that may develop. Leave your final rankings in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time.